Why hello tube? This is take 3 because take 1 and take 2 ended up into like 20-minute rants about organized religion, the hypocrisy of them, and I'm like the first time I can't upload this. I can't do it. And so I sat down, and like a day later I sat down and recorded take 2, and it turned into like a 20-minute rant about the hypocrisy of organized religion. And I'm like, I can't upload this. So here we are today, again, trying to do a video. So this third time's a charm. I'm uploading it no matter what. I'm going to try. Narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave. It's a little tiny book, but it's so incredibly powerful. And it's so infuriating. It's really infuriating. And smoking Orion Zero for anyone who cares. Cornell deals. It starts off just gut punching you with incredibly graphic accounts of, I believe it was either his aunt or his grandma, a family member, getting whipped with a cow skin to the point where she was incredibly bloody. The blood is pooling on the ground below her. And it really doesn't let up from there. Well, you know, being a being a slave, and you know, even in the best of circumstances, horrendous life, in the worst circumstances, worse than hell. Um, and you know, the crazy thing is too, you know, your property. You're not a person. You're property, right? And so maybe you lucked out. You know, using luck as in you lucked out, and you have a master, a slaveholder, who isn't a devil and gives you adequate food. You know, by adequate food, you know, you're talking like cornmeal and meat scraps if you're lucky. But at least you're not going to bed hungry. You're not in like starvation mode. You're not malnourished. Um, but you know, let's face it, people didn't live very long back then, even the wealthy. So you may end up with several different slaveholders because just like their furniture and their land, you got handed on to whoever their heir is, and if that person is a complete monster, you might go from a, again, I'm using quotes here because there's nothing comfortable about it, but you might go from a relatively comfortable position to all of a sudden, you know, not getting adequate food, not getting adequate clothing. You're completely at the mercy of your slaveholder, and you know, Frederick had both you know, both ends of the aspect of that. Blah, I can't talk. But he ended up in a position where he was able to learn a, a trade. He was caulking ships, which if you can caulk ships, you can caulk windows and whatever. So he ended up in a position where he was able to buy his own time, which is a crazy notion to even think of. Where, um, so instead of, he'd go to work at the shipyard, and at the end of the week, he'd have to hand his paycheck over to his master, and he realized that he could actually make more money by paying his master what he would be making at the shipyard, but lining up his own work to do. And he was able to do that for a long time until there was, and he was late on a payment because he was out of town or something, and his master threw a fit and told him that was the end of that, even though he still got paid. It was just like a day late. And which shows you how smart the masters were on top of it, right? I mean, they were getting the same. He was getting the same money no matter what. It's just a power play. That's all it was. But he was actually able to save up a little bit of money doing that. And although he didn't have enough to fully fund his escape, he had enough to where, with the help of others, he was able to fund his escape. And and did so, him and some other people. And ended up in the north and everything. And his friend was actually the one that named him Frederick Douglass. He was, well, I didn't even do this. So he was born in 1817 or 1818. Doesn't know when because they didn't keep records, right? Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey. And the farther north he went, he would change his name ever so often. But anyway, he died February 20th, 1895 in Washington, D.C. for those who care. But instead of... So where I keep getting off on this is the appendix. The appendix is the first couple of pages of the appendix is incredibly powerful, and I don't want to read it because then I'm going to end up in another 20-minute rant on organized religion. And essentially that, how do these, good Christian people, how can good Christian people own people? How can good Christian people whip somebody into a bloody pulp for no reason at all? Or they, or even for, if there was a reason, it's a stupid reason most of the time. And most of the time is not the right word either. You shouldn't be whipping people, period. How can these good Christian people murder? You just, a slave looks at you funky, pull out your gun and you shoot him dead, and nothing happens to you. You'd probably get in more trouble if you shot your dog, right, Apollo? It's like, what? Who are you shooting? It's just, it's, ugh, it's just, it's a very graphic, detailed of slave life. And the thing is too is he doesn't even go into details on how he escaped because he didn't want to A, get anybody in trouble, and B, he didn't want to be known, so that way it could get shut down. And he was actually in the book. He made a comment where he wasn't supportive of the Underground Railroad, and I'm wondering if that was because that's how he escaped and he was blowing smoke, or if there. I don't know enough about. I know the Underground Railroad was essentially a bunch of stops. You go from one house to the other, keep moving your way up. I guess would be the simplified term. Um, if he truly believed that there was something wrong with that system, or if that's how he did it and he was just blowing smoke, try to make it sound like that's not how he did it. But yeah, um this is a really powerful book. If you haven't read this, it takes no time. It's very small. Um, you know, it's it's about 100-ish pages, not counting. Well, how long is the? It's under 100 pages because I mean the introduction stuff take up some room in this, and the appendix is half a dozen pages. But it's a super powerful book. I highly suggest if you haven't read it to read it. For nothing more than um, just being aware of my house about ready to blow down. Just being aware of the how it was to live as a slave back in the 19th century. So that's it for this one, peeps. We're ending it here. There's no 20-minute rant. Um, it's sad, and um, it's not just Christianity. That's it for this one, peeps. Cheers.